life of Abraham Lincoln was filled with numerous relationships, and his relationship with his wife, Mary Todd, is seen by some as one that was fraught with difficulty and tension. After a lengthy courtship, an engagement was called off by Lincoln in 1840 after falling in love with a younger woman and falling into a deep depression. The courtship was later resumed, and the Lincolns were wed in 1842. As Daniel Epstein points out, the correspondence between husband and wife was demonstrative of a, quote, great chasm between them, unquote. Nonetheless, some argue their relationship was grounded in true affection. Catherine Clinton, referencing a letter that Lincoln wrote to Mary Todd in 1848, points out that their correspondence, quote, suggests an easy and comfortable relationship built upon a solid foundation, unquote. The ambiguity regarding the nature of the relationship between Abraham and Mary Todd Lincoln is an example of larger complexities regarding Lincoln's relationships with women and his personality as a whole. Adding to the complexity of Lincoln's history with relationships is the fact that his relationship with Mary Todd was not his only romantic endeavor, and his letter to Eliza Browning, who was the wife of a Whig colleague named Orville Browning, of April 1, 1838, highlights aspects of his personality that some may find surprising. In this letter, Lincoln recounts the story of his relationship with a woman named Mary Owens, with whom he had been engaged temporarily. Said Lincoln, "It was then, in the autumn of 1836, that a married lady of my acquaintance, and who was a great friend of mine, being about to pay a visit to her father and other relatives residing in Kentucky, proposed to me that on her return she would bring a sister of hers with her, upon condition that I would engage to become her brother-in-law with all convenient dispatch. I, of course, accepted the proposal, for you know I could not have done otherwise, had I really been averse to it. But privately, between you and me, I was most confoundedly well pleased with the project. I had seen the said sister some 3 years before, thought her intelligent and agreeable, and saw no good objection to plodding life through hand in hand with her." It does not appear to be entirely clear from this context why Lincoln, quote, could not have rejected this proposal, and his immediate acceptance of this opportunity can be interpreted in ways that could shed light on his personality. Michael Burlingame, who quotes heavily from William Herndon's oral histories collected after Lincoln's death, notes that, quote, Lincoln was known in Springfield as a mighty rough man who was awkward and shy. Apparently Lincoln had poor judgment of the fitness and appropriateness of things, and that at Springfield social gatherings, young ladies avoided Lincoln, unquote. The socially awkward Lincoln went on to discuss his first meeting with Mary Owens, saying, "Although I had seen her before, she did not look as my imagination had pictured her. I knew she was oversized, but now she appeared a fair match for Falstaff. I knew she was called an old maid, and I felt no doubt of the truth of it, at least half of the appellation. But now when I beheld her, I could not for my life avoid thinking of my mother, and this, not from withered features, for her skin was too full of fat to permit its contracting into wrinkles, but from her want of teeth, weather-beaten appearance in general, and from a kind of notion that ran in my head that nothing could have commenced at the size of infancy and reached her present bulk in 35 or 40 years, and in short, I was not pleased with her at all." Lincoln's blunt description of Mary Owens is certainly emblematic of a callous and shallow individual, and one little wonders why he would have so much difficulty in his romantic endeavors. Despite the fact that Lincoln found Mary Owens so unappealing, however, he went on to say, "But what could I do? I had told her sister I would take her for better or worse. At once, I determined to consider her my wife. I tried to imagine she was handsome, which, but for her unfortunate corpulency, was actually true. Exclusive of this, no woman that I have seen has a finer face. I also tried to convince myself that the mind was much more to be valued than the person, and in this she was not inferior, as I could discover, to any with whom I had been acquainted." Although Lincoln did not appear to desire Mary Owens in any way, at least physically, he began to prepare himself mentally for what he called the evil day when he would be married. Lincoln's commitment to marry a woman he did not want shows an unwillingness to go back on his word and an overwhelming commitment to principle. This would be laudable had Lincoln not subsequently broke off his first engagement with Mary Todd 2 years later in 1840. Much to Lincoln's surprise, however, Mary Owens ended up refusing his attempts to move forward with the engagement. Despite Lincoln's happiness that he was out of what he called a scrape, He noted in the letter that his vanity was deeply wounded. Lincoln ends his letter by vowing, quote, to never again think of marrying. After Lincoln's death, in a letter from Mary Owens to William Herndon, Owens recalls that Lincoln was, quote, deficient in those little links which make up the great chain of a woman's happiness, unquote. It is ironic that Lincoln was so judgmental about Owens' appearance, seeing as some argue that he was insecure about his own physical appearance. Lincoln's difficulties in his romantic endeavors shed an important light on his personality. Michael Burlingame argues that his failed courtship with Mary Owens played a role in developing his intense political ambition. Ultimately, it may have been his personal failures and low self-esteem that led to a desire to overcompensate in other areas. Certainly, this is impossible to prove. While explorations into Lincoln's private life may yield no definitive conclusions about the impacts these events had on his public affairs or the course of the nation, they give important perspective to the student of Abraham Lincoln, allowing for a nuanced look at a complex personality and a man who was torn apart by personal affairs as much as political ones.